Reconquista is one of the things out there. Now, I want to mention that that's the same word that is used in Spain for a completely different situation. For 800 years, the Muslims controlled in Spain. And the Christians finally kicked them out. The jihads never stopped. They slowed down during the 20th century, but for like 1,200 years, the jihads have been going on. And after about 300 or 400 years, some of the quote-unquote Christians in Europe finally started doing the Crusades. I won't go into that history, but it is a very... our news, again, our alarm clock, our news is not telling us the truth. We're not getting an accurate look at what is it that's going on in the world. Okay, I'm going to sing to you here. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Tripoli? Wait a minute, that's in Libya, isn't it? The U.S. Navy was constituted in 1802, President Jefferson, because you had the Barbary pirates taking and enslaving entire shiploads of men. You know how many? 1 million. They were tired. How many families does that affect? White slaves in Africa. Okay, I know what you hear is, white people are bad, white people are bad, everyone else in the world victims, okay? So, I'm generalizing here, but that's often the history that is being told. No, and I'll tell you what, when the Mongols had power in Central Europe and Central Asia, I'll tell you what, they used their power, they did what they did for good or for bad, okay? Any people in the world, I don't care what ethnic group, what color, or anything like that, there's good and bad people anywhere you go in the world, okay? Now, the source of Tripoli, I mentioned that because they had to try to rescue, to try to stop this rampant, capturing ships and then enslaving all of the members, and they'd never be seen again. I'm not going to talk about this very much, but the Quran is a completely different book from the Bible. The word love is only used like 24 times in the entire Quran, and it's not used in the context of love your neighbor or anything like that. It's used in the context of Allah loves this, Allah loves that. That is the usual context. The word jihad is in there 169 times. Jihad means to slaughter with the sword. I won't go into that. Now, one other way the media is lying, and there's so many ways the media is lying, and I mention these examples because on a daily basis, our news is being perverted. We are being deceived. We're not hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in our news. Have you ever heard the term Allah Akbar? And in the news, they say that means God is great. That's not what that means. The Arabic word for great is kabir. Kabir. If they were saying God is great, they should say Allah Kabir. That's not what they're saying. They're saying Allah Akbar, which means God, the God of the Quran, is greater. Is greater. Greater than who? Greater than the other God on the block, the God of the Bible. That's what it means. That's what Allah Akbar actually means. Now, I'm just mentioning this because now, most Muslims who are in America are normal, regular people that came here for freedom. That's what they want, okay? And they want to live normal, regular lives. But there is a set of radical Muslims, we know this, that some of them are going crazy, like these guys at Fort Dix and other stuff. And if they're reading their holy scriptures, what is it teaching them? What someone believes. Beliefs lead to actions. Okay, I want to mention another talk here. This is very interesting. This is a Jewish man. I listened to this twice recently. Avi Lipkin. Now, he was raised in America at 19 years old. He moved to Israel. He's lived there 35 years. And now he's speaking in synagogues and churches and civic groups. And this is one called Sleeping in America, The Secret War, Avi Lipkin, L-I-P-K-I-N. And this is a very interesting talk. In Canada, there are certain groups of radical Muslims that are just kind of quietly documenting who are the Jews. It's not just the Jews and the evangelical Christians. In other words, the troublemakers, people who would stand against them in a religious way. And they want to know what are the license plates of their cars, where do they work, where do their kids go to school, stuff like this. Why do they want that information? Anyway, there's some weird things going on. The data collection is going on very quietly, and we're not attuned to it, and we're not being alerted that there's potentially a problem here. I need to conclude here. There's a lot more that I need to say that I would really like to say. But I would say we can take some steps. The first thing is we need to stop supporting our own demise on an information level. If you don't need to get the daily paper, and the daily paper is usually perverting the news, please read something else in the morning, okay? Or get the newspaper for free somewhere at a donut shop, or scan the headlines or something like that. Or the news magazines. Change your subscription and get news magazines that are going to give you quality information rather than try to deceive you. I just want to mention a couple other things, okay, that aren't in the news. Okay, in the 1980s, Saudi Arabia wanted to buy a whole missile system. The United States was glad to sell the Saudis all kinds of defensive weapons, but they said, no, we won't sell you offensive weapons. The Saudis have a lot of money, okay? And so they went to China. The Chinese sold them 120 missiles, and then they even paid, they have technicians to install and maintain them. And if the Saudis ever use those missiles, it will actually be Chinese technicians who will be pushing the buttons. Who do those Chinese technicians answer to? That's the question. Okay. Who do they answer to first? Based out of Saudi Arabia. Okay. Now, EMP, electromagnetic pulse. Electromagnetic pulse. Hey, Mike's shaking his head there. He's heard of this before. Who's ever heard of that? Electromagnetic pulse. Oh, several. Well, mostly many of you have. Okay, good. Okay. James, which is a very interesting defense and military and intelligence-related organization, they said recently, this was last year, that Iran is testing in the Caspian Sea something that looks like a container ship, but that actually has missile launchers built in to fire a Sahab-3 missile, which is one that you could put, if they had a nuclear warhead, could put it on there. And you don't, why burst a missile in, a nuclear warhead in the middle of Manhattan? What would be more effective, what would stop, that would end the United States for the most part, would be to have a container ship coming towards the United States. And the traffic at our major ports, there's so many ships coming and going. You're still out in international waters, maybe you're 100 miles out. Push the buttons, the fake container moves to the side, the launcher goes up, and this missile starts arcing up into the air. Once it's up high enough, it detonates. An electromagnetic pulse then goes out and fries all the electronics on the eastern seaboard of the United States. Back in Hurricane Katrina, remember that? You had gas stations that were full of gas, but if they had no electricity, you can't pump the gas. How many water pumps need electricity or you don't have water? If you don't have water, you can't flush toilets. If you can't do anything. Your phone system goes down. Your cell towers are sticking way up in the air. Nothing's going to work. Everything. Your car ignition. In the 1960s, this was discovered accidentally. The United States discovered nuclear testing in Hawaii. I'm trying to remember what it was called, what they named the things. It was 1962 Compton effect. Compton effect is the name of it. Anyway, it was discovered 800 miles away in Hawaii. Traffic light or street lights were damaged. In Australia, 1,400 miles away, they had problems with navigation systems for like 2 days. They didn't know why. The Americans didn't tell them. It was years later they discovered what had happened. You could potentially have a rogue state fire a single missile, doesn't have to hit anything, and incapacitate a lot of the United States. And we're not being told about this danger. Now, let me back up in time and come forward. Now, I need to close up here, but in the 1940s and 50s, going into the 60s, I would say it was roughly around the 70s when our own media started turning against us, from my perspective, my understanding of it. Our media was for us and alerting us to things. The whole time during the Cold War, people looked back at Pearl Harbor. We don't want to get hit with a surprise attack. People remembered that. They remembered Pearl Harbor. We don't want to get caught by surprise. Okay? When Sputnik was launched in 1957, that was something that people stood in their backyards and would see this Russian satellite going overhead, and no one could do anything about it in the middle of the night. And it started the missile race, the missile gap, the space race and things, all these things. The EMP is something we're not even being alerted to. I'll just mention one thing a person could do. You don't want to go into this or whatever, but Faraday cage. Some people are building actually Faraday, F-A-R-A-D-A-Y, Faraday cage.